Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is showing you how real armor versus kind of armor is effective or not effective, so on and so forth. We will also later on in the panel go into some cutting displays with tatami mats from experts in sword cutting. In addition to that, instead of just cutting tatami mats like you can see on YouTube videos, pretty routine basis, we actually have some historically made gambesons and linen fabric and such that you'll see how well fabric can actually protect you if it's built correctly. But the first part, just a couple displays. We're going to set this up so you can see it on the screen. Hopefully it'll be right enough for you because this is kind of small. One of the first things we did because we were curious, we wanted to see if our armor was bulletproof. Okay, obviously we can't test that here. We can get in trouble. So this rondelle is 1.5 millimeter chrome moly 4130. It's been hardened. You can kind of see as I walk around here, there's small little dings in it, and there's a crack in the side. The dings are 9 millimeter, and the big crack in the side was from a 12 gauge Magnum round. So, yes, our armor is pretty much bulletproof, at least when it comes to small arms fire. Kind of neat. We didn't know that. We found out the hard way. So, and turn on, put it in front of the helmet so it goes up on the big screen. You guys can see little indentions in it. You can see where the crack is. 20 gauge round. Hit to the side right here. You can see the crack in it. The other side, you can see some more little dents on the big screen, hopefully. So kind of neat, just want to show that off, the idea that is something that was interesting. I'm going to bet you all were curious whether or not armor can stop bullets. Properly built armor can stop pistols, so on and so forth. And next what we're going to do. So this is a 2 millimeter helm made of mild steel. This is prototypical Sugarloaf style helm. And this is the type of helm that, and the thickness is relatively appropriate to actually from the historic era. Sorry, I keep dropping this. Apologize for that. So with it being a 2 millimeter mild steel helm, it's very similar to the helms that were actually being used and historically accurate on thickness of the helm. So what we're going to do is have a run through of it taking hits from various levels of people hitting it who are trained to strike and fight with weapons. So first, we're going to have little Miss Wonder Woman here, and she's going to pick up the standard arming sword, and she's going to take a good swift crack at it. Actually, take 2 good swings. Oh. That's enough. All right. That was with a single arm. Sorry. Keep on walking away. That was with a single arming sword, a couple swift dents in it. And now, yes, she trains regularly, so on and so forth. Yeah. But a couple good solid dents are in it from those swift strikes with a single arming sword. It did not defeat the helmet though, so clearly medieval knights were not killing each other by bashing each other in the head. In turn, now we're going to step this up a little bit.
I'll do it.
Sure.
What am I hitting?
Let's hit on the rotator. We're going to hit her on the other side with a mace.
Ooh.
So there's a reason we came out with maces, to beat armor. We're probably going to see this be a little bit effective. And Rich here has been, 20 years sword fighting, so he really knows how to swing this thing.
I missed.
So if you take a quick look, you can see the creases from the mace's blades that struck into the side of it. Once again, it did not defeat the armor. The guy inside would not be happy, but he's going to be okay. So now, Ivan is going to come in, and he's going to pick up a nice 2-handed chopper. So an axe. Axe is not necessarily well built for defeating armor, but they're fun to swing, so let's have some fun with this one. The worst deck so far without question. And in turn though, it's still not deep enough that it would have really hurt the guy very much, because you have a lot of open space inside your helm and padding. And now we're going to let Jonathan, now, Jeff, where are you at? Oh, sorry.
Hey, Tiny, hit it hard.
So now we're going to give Jeff the St. Catherine's Execution Sword. Hold on a second, I want to explain this sword for a second. Why it's called the St. Catherine's Execution Sword is because the only time it's ever been documented anywhere was when they showed a guy executing St. Catherine. But hey, it's documentation, so we can use it. So, Jeff, have some fun. So, alrighty then. That's a bit of a wreck right there, wouldn't you say? I would argue that the guy inside is not okay anymore, of the depth that he got in there. Pretty nifty, right? So you can see we wrecked that pretty badly. Now we're going to go through this again, but we're going to pick up a helmet that would be more with something a noble or royalty would have worn throughout the region. And we're going to see the same effects, maybe, that happen on it. So, Christine, let's just skip the arming sword, because we know it's not going to hurt it. Let's jump to the mace. Give it a couple good swings. And if you look on the screen, I don't even see paint marks on this thing. So in turn, an aspect of this is, the aspect of this when these style helms is they did learn to heat treat and temper armor back then, but only the rich could afford it. So with the rich affording it, they in turn learned and figured it out, and they get to live through these fights a lot easier. So, well, Rich is hanging around the corner, so we'll skip Rich.
What?
Ivan, get in here. Try to hurt it with the axe. Well, you pop it off the mouth. And yep, nothing. Sure. Well, let me. No. So, by the way, what I'm afraid of right now while I'm moving is that I'm afraid he's going to break the sword, by the way, just for reference. So, I'm getting out of the way.
So y'all duck.
See it on the screen? Is it even on the screen? Yeah. Oh, the screen's dead. All right, I'm going to walk it around.
Barely can.
Hands hitting it. There's a little nick. Really tiny nick. Really tiny nick right where I'm pointing my finger as I walk around.
Is that where the spark came from? You fold?
It's part of my apartment. That's where I came from.
There's more damage to the sword. There's more damage to the sword than the helmet.
And that wasn't Rich's sword, so I bet Arthur's mad. So, yeah, what are you trying to hurt it?
The chopper.
Once again, we're going to pull out the St. Catherine sword, which, by the way, the St. Catherine sword had to be repaired previously in a fight from him last year. If you were here for the Armour fighting, Trey Sutter tried to beat me senseless while wearing that helm. And in turn, all he did is wreck his sword. And we had to repair it afterwards. So, one good swing, Jeff. Let me get away, just in case it breaks. And that one was already there. Yeah, Jeff ain't nothing. That's what that is. So you saw how horrible the difference is in the armor. So you imagine what poor, low-end knight had to wear versus what the noble had to wear in combat. So clearly it's a distinct advantage. Now for fun, because our good man Josh thought this would be hilarious to see. Jeff, if you will come in here again. Jeff's gonna smash that helmet with this helmet. So now we're going to switch to a little bit more educational experience instead of a fun and experimental experience. Alan, will you come out and do some basic Q&A about myths of swords? Because I know you got this. And we're going to be set up the tatami mats while Alan gives us some Q&A and discussions about various myths that are most popular.
I'll come outside the cage so they can have the space to work in there. All right, how many of you had a chance to come down and meet with us in the Armory? Handful of you? Good. We have a lot more time and a lot more objects for you to look at. So we got a nice little touch and feel area for you to come in and kind of heft some of these things, see what they feel like. Unfortunately, because of, we'll call it Hollywood, we'll call it gaming, we'll call it Victorian culture, we got a lot of myths and misconceptions about swords and armor, some of which we're dealing with today. So we can talk a lot more about that. You can come out to visit us in the Armory. One of the biggest myths that we have, that we run into, is people are usually pretty ignorant about how much these swords weigh. How many of you have heard that, you know, a knight's sword might weigh 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30, you might even heard of a 50 or 100 pound sword. All those are completely false. A knight's sword usually weighed, if it's a single-handed sword, usually weighed no more than 3 pounds. Long swords might get to 3.5, 4 pounds. Even the really, really big, the two-handed Scottish claymores, the Zweihanders, Beidenhanders, Montantes, that can sometimes get up to 5, 5.5, 6 feet long, 5, 6, 7 pounds. And they even felt lighter than what they actually were because they were so well made. These things were light. They were able to be used very quickly and effectively by these fighters. And they had great techniques to learn how to use each weapon to its advantage. Another big myth that we've run into is the blood groove. There is no such thing as a blood groove. There's not some phantom vacuum that's going to yank your sword or your knife inside somebody's body. We've never had any documentation of somebody searching through a body cavity trying to get their sword or their knife pulled out because it got slurped up into somebody's chest. That does not happen. What you see is called a fuller. When you see a scoop or some sort of ridge that's in the blade, it takes some of the weight out of it, helps to strengthen and define the edge a little bit more. That's called a fuller. It's not a blood groove. How much more time do you guys need? All right, we're good. All right, anybody have any quick questions or myths that you might have heard of that you want confirmed, denied? Yes, right here, big beard.
Well, most of us know that guy that's really into Japanese culture, and they'll tell you all about
Great question. If there is one weapon that has been mysticized more than any other weapon in the history of our world, it's the katana. It is steel. It is susceptible to the laws of physics, just like anything else that's made out of steel. It can break. In fact, the Japanese steel that they had to work with was vastly inferior than what most of Europe had to work with. Their steel is very, very dirty. The folding process is how you remove impurities from that steel. So the fact that they had to keep folding it over and over was not as an indication of how strong the blade is, it's how dirty that steel was in order to get it clean enough to get a good edge. A katana is designed to cut soft targets, and it's very, very good at that. It has a very sharp edge. It can cut soft targets extremely well. The back side of it is soft. They avoided blade-to-blade contact at all costs because the edge was so fine. And katana going up against a European sword, or especially against European armor, would get mauled, it would get destroyed, and it would get chewed up, unless it found a soft target and it would cut very, very well. But that was a very good question. The katana is always over-mysticized. It cannot cut through concrete. It cannot cut through other swords. And it cannot cut through SUVs, even if you do it in the Matrix. It just does not work. Very good question. Anybody else? Yes, in the back.
How fatal was it to be a knight? I mean, they spent a lot of time and money taking these boys and making them into knights. So, and we see on TV shows where it's like all the knights just getting demolished every battle. Like, how good was it to survive?
A fully armored knight is a tank. As we just saw, they are very, very well protected. However, when you see a tank, you send everybody after that tank. Rich has got something to add to this, apparently.
So the armor we wear in the fighting we're going to be doing at 4 o'clock, my suit is about $1,500 to $2,000. Okay, that's in today's money. Now you got to remember, the knights in period, they depended on their lives on this, right? Just like you buy a car, they're putting all their life savings into a suit of armor. And if they lose that, maybe that's all they got, especially if they didn't have a rich family. So it's hugely expensive. And of course, you could look really good and spend a lot of money.
Right, very good. All right, I think we're set to go. We're going to have some test cutting, and if we've got a few more minutes, we'll take a few more questions, so save them, and we'll get back to you. Here comes Keith.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to do some test cutting. Before we started, both of my shorts are pretty much razor sharp. The other 3 we are using, they're various levels of sharpness. So I personally don't know who they will actually cut well. But I do know that as a sword type, they cut well. What we're using today is tatame. This is just a Japanese method of test cutting. Test cutting is actually not very hard. It's just a good form to show how good your cut is. But if your blade's a little dull, then it shows. Aaron, sir, can you grab one of my long swords, please? So Aaron's being very careful because these are both of mine and they're pretty darn sharp.
Cut-resistant gloves.
Yeah. So I have 2 different types, just hold them up and show them around. I have 2 different types of longsword here. This is known as a Spadone Brescia. It comes from Italy, an Italian museum in Brescia has it. And this is a generic blade type. It's an oak shot 9, I think, 10, something like that. It's what Albion, who's a really good sword maker, they call him his ringed blade. This blade is, if I was going to battle against any of these armor guys sitting down here, that's the sword I would take. Because that job is to find gaps in armor and thrust in. If I'm going up against somebody who's lightly armored, this is the sword I take, because this will cut. I will be able to cut with this guy, but it does not cut as well. The other swords we have, let's grab these 2. I'll grab this guy. This is Dao. It's essentially a Chinese saber type sword. It's very heavy, and it's pretty much a chopper. If you know what a falchion is, which is a European heavy chopping blade, this is sort of the Chinese equivalent. We have a German blade that was found in Afghanistan, correct?
It was in Afghanistan. It's roughly from the 1820s.
Yeah, so about 1820s in Afghanistan. A lot of German blades actually end up in India and Afghanistan and stuff like that. And this is a back sword. This is probably the dullest one, so if I don't successfully cut with this, it's not the sword's fault. It's just not been sharpened enough just yet. All right, so we'll get started. Okay.
This cut that he's going to do is called a Zornhau. It's a diagonal cut that starts high right and goes left. And this is one of the essential cuts of the German longsword tradition.
So, double-edged sword.
Double-edged sword.
Sure. So I'm going to cut from one edge, then we're going to change and do the other edge.
Easy.
Right?
That's how easy it's done.
So, this sword is literally razor sharp. How I test if it's sharp enough is I shave my arm. Okay? A friend of mine owns a very well-made katana. It doesn't get sharper than this. They are equally sharp. There's a time when the sharpness becomes sharp, right? You don't need to be much sharper. The difference is how long will it hold the edge. A katana generally can hold the edge a little bit longer than my longsword. But if Alan and I had a duel, and I just did this to him twice, I can go home and sharpen my sword. Right? So it doesn't really matter. All right.
This is an Unterhau. It's a cut that comes from below.
That was actually bad. Okay? I cut through. But where did the tatami end up? Ended up over there, right? That meant I had motion going this way. Alright. Next sword. Alrighty guys, so I'm going to use the dowel. Remember, I'm not too sure how sharp it is. I did a paper test with it. It cut through the paper okay. I'm only going to do that simple diagonal cut on it. Don't miss. Alright, here, let me try. I have enough practice with this. I know you. There we go.
Yeah, see, he knows what he's doing.
Also, these tatamis are a little wet, so that's why I'm getting this little thingy, just so you know. For those of you who do Asian martial arts, all right. I've also never used this sword before, so I'm not sure historically how it is to be used. So I'm just going to use it like I would use a similar European sword, okay? Which would be coming up around, and then stepping into my cut to get power.
That's
okay?
straight out of one of the Chinese manuals.
Is it? Awesome. Apparently it's what they would do.
Nice.
This is not sharp, by the way. Not sharp enough. It scares me. Ah.
Even with the dull blade, he almost got completely through that.
Yeah, that's...
Finish that off.
I'll just...
By the way, when they're saying dull blade, it will still easily
Oh, yeah.
cut you if you play with it on your fit hand.
Yeah, don't play with this. This is dull compared to my swords, right? I'm just going to do this one again. I'm playing. I don't know if this will work. right. So, but did we notice something? The Dow required a different dynamic from me, right? With the first one, I literally could just go zoom. With this, it's my entire body going through the cut. Honestly, to me, if I was on the battlefield, I would be more scared of this. Sorry. Oh, good. Thank you. So, honestly, on the battlefield, I'd be more scared of this than I would be on the longsword if I just saw somebody using it, because they have to use their full body, and this looks more dynamic. Honestly, big boy over here, if he had one of these in his hand, I would probably run away. So.
We're going to move on to the second longsword. This is the one that tapers a bit more to the tip. This one will not have as much cutting power as the previous one because it doesn't have as much blade mass towards the end. And again, this one is the one that was designed more for thrusting. But even with that in mind, we're going to see how it does. This is a diamond profile. That's a center ridge is the high point. A very common design of blade profile.
Right, so it's about halfway through.
About halfway through on that cut.
It's still, you don't want to be hit by this, but cutting capability is completely different. I'm cheating. Yeah, so this sword is razor sharp as well, but compared to the Dow or the Brescia, it's not cutting as well, is it? No. This predominantly was used for thrusting. Now, again, if I'm a knight and poor Alan here is some poor chump who's only got some gambesson on, yeah, I can cut at him. I'm going to do lots of damage and I'll probably kill him. But if he's a knight, I'm going to start trying to put this tip, this very acute tip, into those gaps to actually finish him off. Okay? So, I'm going to move on to the Afghanistan blade. Again, I'm not too sure how sharp this one is. I'm saving off the last two bits of tatami. We're getting a little wet here. Saving the last bits of tatami for the linen.
Wait, hold.
Oh, I'm waiting.
Clear.
Okay. Wish me luck. Thank you. Yeah. This one's probably not sharp enough.
I'm not going to hold it.
Nah.
Not quite sharp enough.
It's bouncing, but trust me, from holding this,
It's not a replica to the store.
it's So this is a historical piece. This is a historical blade. It's probably at least 160 years old, if not older. And this still could be sharpened properly. From holding the sword and just cutting through it, it's me. It'll do the job. It is a little peculiar. If you get to the armory later on, I don't know if you can hear it back, the tip is completely blunted out. So they probably repurposed this from a different type of blade. Right, I'm now going to try Alan's back sword. Again, this one is pretty blunt, so if it doesn't work, it's not my fault.
A back sword is a single-edged blade. The backside has been beefed up. This is from about mid-1500s.
Yeah. $2. So, do you mind? Yeah. Should be easy to put on. Yeah, unfortunately this one's a little too dull as well. But again, this is, remember the Dow over here? Extend that down about half a foot. You got essentially the same type of sword. If I could have this for a day, you won't want Alan to play with you with this. It will not be nice. All right, so what I'm just going to do, I'm going to go back to the breccia. I'm going to just finish this mat. Alan and Aaron, could you put the linen onto those tatami?
That's Game Boys with cotton. Cotton and linen. The other one's 10 layers of linen.
So I can do it from here without using. So so I'm just going to do some trick, but they're not really trick cuts, but they're sort of tricky. So one very quick. It's too bendy now. Try one more. I'm just going to kill it. Yay! So, we saw how quick that went through, right? We're now going to have some linen put on it. Wrong kind of tape? Okay. They grabbed the wrong tape. Which one will do first? We'll do this. So, anyone? So, this is natural linen.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So this piece of fabric right here is it's natural linen, and it's 10 layers. Before it was sewn together, it was a finger's width thick. When you look at when you look at English guard manuals, they were required to have their uniform be a finger's width thick of linen. This was like the police officer who patrolled the streets to stop people getting in sword fights, not the soldier. That's the type of fabric and design this is. So it's a historically modeled, other than unicorn stickers. So this is what a police officer back in the 1400s would hope would keep him safe if he got in a sword fight.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've tried to cut through linen. The last time I tried, I failed miserably. It's very good at protecting. So, I got through 1, 2, 3, 4. I actually got all the way through, but there's only a dent in the tatami. Right? So, one more time. Force a habit. Nothing. I cut maybe one. All right, back to my strong side.
Keith, can we let one of our guys try?
Yes.
Okay.
Who would?
Get in there.
Yeah.
Like a kid in a candy store.
Here you go. Yes.
Yeah, I got you. Where's the sharp one?
No.
It's a light.
All the way through. A little bit.
Just a little bit on the tatami.
Yeah.
There's a baseball swing.
Yeah.
One thing I want to chime in real quick here. If you notice that Rich was going for power and technique, and he actually did less damage when Keith did it with only using technique. So, in turn, you can actually pull off a stronger blow, so on and so forth, by using perfection of the technique. It's a key thing to think about and take into account.
So I'm going to try one more type of cut. We know this works now, right? If you're underneath there, there's going to be a layer of cotton on top of this as well. You might have some wool in there. You'll be fine. But I'm going to two things. I'm going to try to hit here, then hit here. Right. So, I deliberately cut short on this cut, but just so everyone can see how easy it went through, right? I didn't want to go all the way through in case I hit the tape. I'm going to do the same cut. It's my favorite cut. It's called a crumpau against the linen. Basically, I'm doing this number. Nothing.
Nothing.
I hit. Yeah. I got any bruise. You're fine. Have you tried this stuff? Yes, seriously, this one. I'm just going to chop this down.
Watch out.
Oh. There we go.
So the next one we're setting up here, this is the piece being used is linen with wool inside of it. Either one, your choice. It's the same thing. In turn, this is what the soldiers wore and then put armor on top of it. It also aren't like chain, which, you know, the little ring links could theoretically get stabbed through. They had this behind that to absorb the blows. This is more for impact resistance. But also we'll see that it pretty much probably is going to stop cuts too. So.
All right, so I've deliberately wrapped this around itself so I get several layers. The first one I'm going to cut through is a single layer. For the time period that I took a study, they'd have a lot thicker gambits on if you're wearing armor. That's what a double layer will show.
What happened if you tried to puncture it?
I'll go straight through it. Yeah, I just did. We'll talk about that later. What do you see?
Where'd you hit it?
Right here. Nothing.
The duct tape held! The unicorn's a little upset. Yeah. That's about it.
Wow, that's how much, see how bent it is? That's how much force I put into that cut. He's having a hard time straightening it out for me. Yeah, okay. How's that? Good, goodish, okay. So just so you know, when we normally do this type of cutting, we do tournaments with test cutting, we normally have this lying flat. Not here, not like this. And then they still have problems getting through it. I guarantee you I'm not succeeding in this cut. I'm going to try. I don't think it would hurt the unicorn.
No damage at all to the fabric.
So have we proven that duct tape's like the best armor ever?
Yeah. Duct tape works. Duct tape works. So, one more. I'm just going to baseball about it this time. I feel impotence. Nothing.
No damage at all.
Yeah, I'll try it again.
You don't fall over.
Good.
We're supposed to say something about not doing this at home, but nobody listens to those, right?
He got through.
We might have some splitting. So you saw that wind up, how much he had to put into that And that's just getting through some fabric, some padded fabric.
And you didn't even get all the way through, right? You're not going
to get that wind up in a real fight, unless you're really lucky. If you're really lucky and you blindside the guy, then you will. But basically, this stuff works very well. You asked about thrusting. I'll try one. I'll use a ring ick. So may I get past you, please, sir?
You want duct tape to hold?
Should be good.
That side's fine.
Yeah. I might miss. You're dead.
So it went at about, what, 2.5 inches?
I didn't even try. Yeah, I was scared of putting it through. Yeah.
This type of sword works really, really well for thrusting. So against somebody armed in just that, if you have a tool that's meant for thrusting, that's your solution.
Yeah. I'm done.
Big hand for Keith.